This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So off the air, I had this question, guys. Very important, deep, philosophical question.
Let's go there.
What is eye candy?
That's interesting because when I was talking with your wife, that's what she said. The reason why she married you is you were eye candy.
It was a dimly lit room that
right?
night. Yeah.
Exactly.
When you hot, you hot. When you hot,
Right.
you hot. You're not far from good, but no, good from far, but far from good.
There you go. Would you want to be considered eye candy if somebody said, "Ooh, Johnny Jennings is some eye candy"?
No,
How
that
would
just
you
makes
feel?
me wholly uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people think that, if you're considered eye candy, that's it. You're pretty to look at, but there's not a whole lot there underneath.
Yeah. You have the definition pulled up, Ryan? Like what was it that they were saying?
It was kind of like that. A person or people considered highly attractive to look at, often with the implication that they are lacking in intelligence or depth.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's not necessarily a compliment.
Got it. But so moving aside from like the more traditional definition, like an eye candy thing for me are cigars. Like you send me some cigar pictures. I'm like, ooh, I want to look at that.
Right, that's
I
true.
want some of that.
Right.
What's some eye candy for you, Ryan?
I don't know. I'm just laughing. I'm
Skateboards and tea?
Well, I would say maybe watching skaters on Instagram, where it's like, how much time do I spend watching? The
Do you still
skaters?
skate?
I do on vacation, and we got a Tahoe
Like
trip coming up.
skateboards?
Yeah.
Oh.
I make skateboards.
You do?
Longboards, yeah.
Wow.
And so just kind of a hobby. I haven't made one for a while, but I really need to do something this summer when the contractors get
Can
out
I
of our
ask how old
house.
you are?
I'll be 48 in October.
Okay, so you're younger than Tony Hawk, right?
Yeah,
I think Tony Hawk's in his 50s.
I think he's 56.
There you go. Wow, so
You
grew
think
up-
he's 56? That was a very specific guess.
Well, I saw
his birthday's in 3 weeks.
I look at Ryan here, his age, and obviously he probably grew up following Tony Hawk.
Oh, I see
That-
what you're saying.
Even
Of course.
my son, who's 10 years old, knows who Tony Hawk is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just this prolific skateboard. He basically made skateboarding popular.
Yeah, no,
He's just so interesting. He's some eye
amazing.
candy, if you want to call
He's
it
an
that.
eye candy skateboarder.
No, I would say he's substance, man.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
substance.
I love how
No.
passionate Ryan.
No. This guy,
don't even call him eye candy.
No.
He's got substance.
He gets some hate because I think whenever you're on top, and he made so many millions over his video game, which I never played because I don't.
They
do
even
video
had
games.
a roller coaster ride at Six Flags named after him.
But the guy is like he's done so much for the sport with building skate parks through his foundation all across the country and I think even the world. But just phenomenal guy.
Why does he get flack?
Well, I think whenever you're on top, you get flack. You don't have haters, unless you're successful, right? No one hates on someone who's not doing anything with their life. I think that's a lot
not
of it.
entirely
Maybe jealousy.
true. Siblings hate. You don't have to be on top.
Okay.
But siblings will hate.
Wow.
There you go.
Sounds like Johnny has some personal
No,
experience to talk about.
I'm just saying brothers and sisters fight, Give me that back. That's mine.
That's true.
he
of
was
course.
real quick to give you that response.
Yeah, that came from the heart.
Oh, gosh. Sorry, family.
We won't go there.
Yeah, we won't go there. But speaking of, so you got the hobby of woodworking, and you also are collecting signs, right? Like neon signs?
Yeah.
Would you say collecting?
I wouldn't say collecting,
Okay.
but I do have sort of an eclectic man cave in my garage now with a pool table.
Oh,
and it's been
man.
it's been a little nuts over the past year where I'm like, okay, when I calculate all my receipts at the end of the year, my wife's going to be surprised.
That's not a tax
Wow.
write-off?
Oh, it is. That's
How
right.
is
Yeah.
it a tax write-off?
Hey man, I have clients over. I'm this Saturday.
It's
I'm
an office. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm actually I do have a home office right next to it, in part of the garage. But I have people over all the time.
You use it for entertaining.
I do open invites to anyone, and so over the last few months, a few times, and even this weekend, I'm having a bunch of people over. Be
Oh,
like,
really?
Come on. Yeah.
Do you have a skate ramp in your backyard?
I don't know.
He does have a pool table, though, right?
So, pool table in the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would be bad if I should not be doing that. So
Not at 48?
No. But when I go on vacation, I ride my longboard. I would like to ride it more, but I just, a couple years ago, I videotaped myself doing a kickflip, and then my back was like,
Oh, man.
So
Crunched.
That's crazy.
I got it, and then I'm like, okay, I think I'm good. So
Cool. So, but talking about eye candy, that went down a long rabbit hole, but trail, not reverse, assumable mortgages are a bit of, you were saying eye candy, Ryan.
Correct. Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the idea, an assumable mortgage is a mortgage that has a really low rate that a buyer can take over that mortgage, basically. And so it's an FHA or a VA mortgage. And right now, the idea of taking over a 2.5% rate, I mean, the savings can be dramatic, but I call it eye candy also just because the idea is so attractive, but they're also really difficult to pull off. Yeah. Right now, I think in our marketplace, there's a place for these. Like, they are happening more frequently, but the problem is that the buyer today has to pay any difference between, the loan and what the property sells for.
Yep.
But it requires a perfect storm of the right seller, the right buyer, and the right loan servicer. So the buyer and seller might agree, but the loan servicer might take 4 months to, approve this transaction. On average, properties took from the time they listed to the time they closed 120 days for the loan assumptions.
Wow.
And so it's just like, not every seller is going to wait that time. Or you list your home and then you say, why do you say yes to the assumable mortgage when you have 2 other buyers on the hook who can close in 21 days or whatever? And so it's an uphill battle, but someone will crack the code, figure this out more. If they can get an efficient process down, I mean, imagine how many of these can go through. And imagine a premium that people would pay for a lower mortgage, but we're just not there right now. I think they're more arduous, and they're just going to take longer. And there's this uncertainty about, can it actually happen or not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is new to me. So can you explain a scenario of how this works?
So imagine someone bought a home in 2021 with FHA financing, and they paid $600,000. Okay. Now imagine it's worth $650,000 today, and that mortgage though has a 2.5% rate. And instead of having a 7% rate today, the buyer today can go through this assumption process where they would take over that mortgage, and whatever it would be, probably $580,000 total. But they have to make up that $70,000 difference today in cash, or if the lender allows a different type of loan, that's fine. But they can take over and have that loan be their loan today. And so, imagine if that worked, the profound savings.
Sure.
Yeah. And so the idea is awesome. But
what's the upside for the seller? Is there an upside for the seller?
The seller nets what the seller nets. It doesn't really do anything for the seller unless that seller doesn't have many buyers.
Right.
And, I think a lot of this could probably work a little bit better off market when the seller's really patient or trying to sell to a friend or whatever. There's scenarios where this works. It is happening more frequently. In my market talks, I often ask people, hey, raise your hand if you've done a loan assumption. And I've learned to ask, raise your hand if you've done one successfully. Yeah. There's a real difference because people are like, yeah, bro, I did one. And I'm like, well, wait, was it successful though? But I'm seeing more hands go up. So I'd say this is a small and growing trend, but it's a tiny trend. Like we got to be careful not to hype it up too much. But this is sort of like we've got to get more creative when affordability is a struggle. And I think that's where we look in a market when the numbers don't, math isn't mathing in a lot of cases.
The people that I see typically doing it, Matt, are the ones who have time and resources. So think investors, like a realtor friend of ours, she just bought a property in Hawaii. This is a real estate agent, very successful, very experienced. Both the seller and her as the buyer wanted to complete this assumable loan process over 5 months for her to see this through. The bank did not want to approve it because they'd rather write you a loan for 7%.
Right.
A new loan for 7%.
So that's interesting to me why banks are allowing this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's built into the loan product. This is allowed to happen, but the vast bulk of loans, say locally, about 15% of loans are FHA and VA. And so think that, a huge chunk of the properties that were purchased don't even qualify, conventional financing, but there also aren't very many people who are selling who have a low rate. And so it's sort of like this idea, I'm going to go buy a foreclosure. And it's like, well, that's possible, but it's also difficult to pull off because there's just not that many properties.
It's not relevant to a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, but there's sort of tech companies rising up and who are, trying to, run with this and identify properties that, are good candidates. And of course, they want money from the buyer. I've heard, 1%. There's a flat fee company that's coming, I think, that will only be like I think $750, which would be a great asset to the agents if that's the case, but because that's actually affordable. I think 1% to me, I'm like, really? What did you do, though?
Oh, gosh, you're acting like people talking about real estate agents. What did you do? What did you do for the 2.5%, 3%,
but
X percent?
Sounded like Johnny's siblings.
But throw an extra 1% in that transaction where there's already the real estate fees. To me, it sounds inflated, but I don't get to decide. What I think doesn't matter. The market gets to figure this out. If the market wants this product, they'll pay for it.
The market should ask you, Ryan. The market, what you say matters.
Okay. Well, that's my opinion then, John.
All right. Well, speaking of your opinion on the market, you were saying that it looks like the market may have peaked a little bit earlier this year.
Yeah, so we definitely peaked in, I would say, late April technically, where we hit, the hottest portion of the market, and then we're starting to cool off. And it's not like the market's at zero right now. The brakes were slammed, and then, okay, nothing's happening. It's more like the gas pedal gets let off, and then people start thinking about vacations and graduations, and there's starting to be less activity. So the percentage of multiple offers, instead of 57%, it's 50% right now. And so there's that subtle change where you notice, and it's really around this time of year, almost every year, this is kind of what happens. The most aggressive part of the market, Super Bowl to about Mother's Day, and then a lot of people think in real estate, though, the summer is the hottest time. And I'm like, yes, the weather, it's still really competitive in a lot of price ranges. So don't, hear that the market's dull. It's just, there's not that, spring vibe, the very peak of demand. We did cross that. I think that's what the stats show. And
you said that it peaked a little bit earlier this year compared to normal?
Maybe slightly, but it's
a couple weeks, a month?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's right there in the pocket. It just felt like maybe we were going to peak a little bit later in May this year, but, that's not happening. Like I said before, the difference in this market, we have a faster pace of the number of listings growing compared to the number of sales. And so that sort of changes demand a little bit. And meanwhile, buyers are like, I'm not seeing the listings though. Where are they? It doesn't feel like there's more. And so I get that too, since we're still, missing 5,000 from normal.
It also seems like interest rates played a factor into that, because earlier in the year, it seems like they were going to come down and the market was kicking off pretty hot. And then they started raising the interest rates and they kept the interest rates high, and affordability remains to be a challenge for many people. And so, definitely think that may have.
I think you're right. I think we're like May, kind of lackluster number of sales. And I think that's a reflection of rates showing an uptick in previous time. It just shows how sensitive the market is to rates right now.
So sensitive. So sensitive. And then it tends to taper off, in the summertime. But I don't know about you, but do you typically see like a resurgence sometime in like late September, October, like the last little like oomph before the market cools off for the rest of the winter?
Yeah. So historically, we see sort of one last rush to the market, sort of a pre-Thanksgiving rush, before you gorge yourself with all the food. Let me gorge myself with real estate. That's kind of how it usually works. But the kids are back into school. There's more of a rhythm in life. I think rhythms disappear sometimes in a lot of ways during the summer because people are gone and, schedules are uncertain. But then I think when you start to get that established pattern again, whether it's with school or work, and it's not, 115 degrees outside, there's no smoke, we're not mall walking, all those things, I think the market finds its rhythm also. And so usually there's more sales in December compared to November, because you get that rush of buyers, October, November, and then you get more in December. So not always, but that's often sort of a normal dynamic.
What we tell sellers all the time is, hey, if you're thinking about selling in the winter, go ahead and sell, because how motivated of a buyer do you have to be to break up that rhythm that you were talking about, break up the holidays, and consider making a move? Like you're probably more motivated than your typical buyer in the regular season. And the same thing goes for sellers. Like how motivated, if you're thinking about buying a home, how motivated do you think that seller is? If they're willing to hit pause on everything, not have one last Christmas or one last Thanksgiving in the home, what's happening in their life? So sometimes it's a great time to, even though it's out of season, to still make that move.
Yeah, no, and I like that, because if someone is on the market in the fall, that means they need to sell. And so I'm like, great.
Yeah.
And if it starts to rain, even better, because then you understand if the gutters and roof and drainage work. I'm like, I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah. So we love we love the rain, because then when the home inspector gets up in there, they can be like, oh, look, there's an active leak. And when in the summertime, you're like, it looks like there might have been a leak. Let's check with the homeowner, make sure they fixed it. But we're not entirely sure because it looks like it used to be up there. But anyways, if you would like to learn more about Ryan Lundquist, just reach out and have him speak at your team meetings. If you're a real estate agent, hire him. Is it probate, and what type of work do you typically do?
Yeah, just a lot of private stuff, divorce, estate planning, litigation, just a ton of stuff.
All the exciting things.
Yeah, all the boring stuff. Oh gosh, yeah. Let me tell you.
Just reach out to us, 530-GET-MORE, 530-GET-MORE, and we can connect you with Ryan. He's a phenomenal dude, smartest in the biz. Thank you so much for being on today.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate being here.
All right, see ya.